So first things first, Dexter is sitting right there eating a carrot. So if you hear any chewing throughout this video, it's not me, it's the doggo. But anyway, that's beside the point. As you guys know, Season 2 of Black Ops Cold War is officially here, and with it, as per usual, we have a brand new operator, and this one is called Naga. Now, in this video, we are going to be going over his full story from the very beginning to what we know about him now, but what we're also going to be doing in this video is discussing how he ties into the rest of the Black Ops storyline, talking about Perseus, talking about Raul Menendez, and also talking about how Naga is totally insane, and you'll see what I mean throughout the entire video. He is a super interesting character, and how he ties into everything I actually believe is really important for the rest of the story of the game. Again, you'll see what I mean by that, but let's start it out. This is the full story of Kapano Naga Vang. So I think a good place to start with Naga is right in game. As far as his bio goes, it actually has quite less information than we normally get on a character, especially that we have this much background information on, and you'll see what I mean. So first of all, the first thing you need to know is where it says service affiliation. There is no service affiliation other than Perseus. If you go over to Stitch, it says that he's ex-KGB and now he works for Perseus. If you go to Naga, he just works for Perseus. There's a reason for that, and you're going to see it as we look through his story. Now, Naga is from Laos, and he was born on the 29th of May, 1950, which puts him right around the age of 33, 34 right now in game. The background is a former warlord growing rich, trafficking drugs and weapons through the Golden Triangle. Now, if you don't know what the Golden Triangle is, essentially it is Southeast Asia, and basically it's the lake and mountainous region between Thailand, Laos, and Burma. And this is actually where we see a bunch of the missions in Black Ops games. For example, we have the mission there in Black Ops 1 where we go up the river and eventually find the airplane. We have the cutscene, which is in the exact same area, and that is of course in Black Ops Cold War. His bio continues to say he is feared by his men for his temper and brutality. We're going to dive more into that. And he is recruited by Perseus to move WMDs around the globe using his established supply lines. We're also going to go over why that sentence doesn't make any sense, but we'll get into that in a minute. First of all, what you need to know is his full name is Kapano Naga Vang, and he is quite literally insane. You'll see what I mean. So the first thing that I want to dive into is why I say that he is insane. And there is a couple of different reasons for this, and you'll see why. Where I'm getting all of this information from is the blog post that Activision posted, which will be linked down in the description. What we find out is that Naga is merciless. Essentially, he led a bloody coup to take over control of the cartel. Now, it doesn't say in the blog post who controlled it before him, but that is interesting because it is very similar to Raul Menendez's story about taking over the drug cartel from his father. Now, where things get interesting is where they talk about Naga's followers and the people that work for him, his lieutenants. They describe them as sycophantic loyals, which are people who are literally quite insanely loyal to him. Naga refers to his men as temple dogs, and there's a couple of ways of looking at this. The first, and the one that I think makes more sense, is them actually being called Fu dogs or Imperial Guardian Lions, which are a Chinese thing. These are things that became really popular in Chinese Buddhism, and you see them in front of a lot of temples and things along those lines. They can be found in several places, including Laos, Tibet, Thailand, all over the place, and it makes sense that that would be the culture that Naga also adopts as well. And basically, Naga refers to his men as his guardian lions. So where this gets interesting, and the second part of this, is when we extrapolate that. Now, if you think I'm going too far or you don't believe me at this point, if you take a closer look at what Naga wears, on his mask, it looks incredibly similar to the aesthetic of these statues that you saw there. The temple dogs, or the Fu dogs, or Chinese guardian lions, whatever you want to call them, are meant in the Buddhist culture to essentially protect your dharma, which loosely means your reason of being or your reason to be alive. And if we follow that with Naga, his reason to be alive would be to smuggle drugs and smuggle weapons of mass destruction, which is pretty insane, which makes this follow-up make a lot more sense. We find out that in recently redacted CIA files, they refer to Naga as a brutal son of a bitch. I don't know how they know much about his mother, but here you go. We also find out that he maintains his position mostly out of fear. making sense of why he calls them temple dogs, because he feels like he constantly needs protection. They say that this is a combination of spending too much time in the jungle and also dipping into his own supply, and I think you guys know what that means. If I explain it anymore, this video will get demonetized. However, the paranoia might actually be reasonable. The reason why I say that is, you may remember in the season 1 cutscene when Stitch raids the CIA compound, he finds a card, a playing card with him on it. Naga, when he kills this soldier in the forest of Laos here, we then find out that there is also another card with Naga's picture on it. And after doing a little bit of research, I found out that this was a thing that the CIA did in the Gulf War to some Iraqi higher-ups, essentially calling these death cards and the people that you need to assassinate. And I'm willing to bet that we're going to see more and more of these cards throughout the next seasons of Black Ops Cold War. Now, this next part is probably the most important part as a whole. It says, I'm going to read it word for word. Despite his madness, Naga is an astute businessman and the true definition of a mercenary, which means gun for hire. After his recruitment by Perseus, which many of the underlings took as purely transactional in nature, Naga understood that promises Perseus made to destroy the world order will be exceptionally good for business. Naga's finances have never been better. So there's a couple of different parts to this. First of all, we know that Naga is a drug smuggler. That's straightforward. This actually doesn't come into play here. The part that does is how he's smuggling WMDs with his supply line for Perseus. We know that Perseus has reached out to him and he is doing this. However, we also know that this was already happening in Black Ops 1. The reason why we know this is because in Black Ops 1, there was a Russian plane found down in Laos. This was obviously by Alex Mason, Woods, and Bowman. They found it inside the plane, and obviously that plane crashed, and then they were captured by Kravchenko. Now, back in Black Ops 1, one thing that I always found super strange about this is in Black Ops 1, Mason, Woods, and Bowman are captured by Kravchenko, captured by the Russians. And then in the next mission, when they are interrogated, they're all of a sudden interrogated by Laos or Vietnamese soldiers. And I always found that weird. We knew that they were working together. We didn't know why. Now we have an answer to that. Naga was hired by them and his temple dogs were doing his bidding in this circumstance. Now, it gets even more confusing than this, because if that is true, that also means that at that time, Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner were already working for Perseus, which means Perseus would be the puppeteer behind the entire events of Black Ops 1 as well, which was never stated, but we always kind of had that idea in the back of our head. So once again, tying that Perseus storyline together. But there is also one other tie-in as well, and that is Menendez. So, hear me out on this one, because this one's going to take a minute to explain. We know that Stitch has reached out to Menendez to use his drug smuggling supply line as well. We find this note on Cartel that basically explains just that. We also find out in Naga's bio that he is vicious to anyone who competes with him, which means that his competition is directly Raul Menendez. So essentially, I see two ways that this could potentially go. Perseus is working with both Naga and Menendez, and one of them is going to find out, and there is going to be a drug war, which would be super cool. Kind of hope that happens. There is a second option here, though, and it could explain the downfall of Perseus, and that downfall could very well be Menendez. So what I mean by this is we never hear anything about Perseus in Black Ops 2. We hear all about Menendez, and yet we see that it is possible via this note that Perseus is working with Menendez. But say, for example, Menendez got that note and decided, no, I don't want to work with these people. I just want to do drugs. I don't want to smuggle any weapons. Then obviously Perseus goes to Naga to do the same sort of thing. Yet at the same time, we know that Menendez is thriving at the beginning of Black Ops 2, which tells us that he either is still working with Perseus, or option 2, he worked against Perseus and came out on top. Both options at this point are viable. There isn't any information to point us in either way. All we know is that Perseus is working with two different drug smugglers, Naga and Menendez. Are they going to end up working together to create a bigger supply chain, or are they going to end up in a drug war, Menendez against Perseus? I guess we'll have to wait and see. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the full story of Naga. Let me know what you think of this character down in the comments. He's super interesting, a little bit insane. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about it. Also, if you enjoyed the video, always appreciate it if you hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, like what you see, want to stay up to date on all my videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.